Dr. Seuss's books were always good on their own. I think we've all read at least one of his books by now. They're still some of the most well-known children's books out there. However, everything always seems to fall apart when it comes to TV adaptations. From movies to Walmart commercials, for some reason, it seems like no one really knew how to properly transfer Seuss's creations into modern entertainment. Now sure, there were things like Dr. Seuss on the Loose, which were animated adaptations of some of the books that aired back in the 70s, and of course the 60s Grinch film. But beyond that, we were stuck with movies like The Cat in the Hat, Jim Carrey's Grinch, Illumination's Grinch, which gave us this picture, and of course, The Lorax. Every single film ended up becoming a joke, and it seemed impossible to make a good Seuss adaptation. Until November of 2019, that is. Around this time, a new adaptation of Green Eggs and Ham would be created, and premiered on Netflix with one season. A lot of people were skeptical about the show, given everything that happened before that, and understandably so. Did Green Eggs and Ham finally break the streak of bad ideas? Let's go back and see how it went. This is my review and retrospective of Netflix's Green Eggs and Ham. Just a disclaimer, this video contains spoilers, so if you haven't seen the show, you've been warned. This show was developed by Jared Stern and premiered on Netflix on November 8, 2019. Season 1 contained 13 episodes, each one being named after one of the rhymes from the original book. The first episode, simply titled Here, gives us an introduction to our main characters, named Sam I Am and Guy Am I. Guy, voiced by Michael Douglas, is a former inventor who kinda just gave up on his career due to his inventions always exploding. He has a negative outlook on life and just wants to spend time watching paint dry. While he's at his local diner, he meets Sam I Am, who is a positive, enthusiastic, friendly traveler of sorts, who of course loves green eggs and ham. It's the dish he eats the most. You can probably tell where this is going. The plot is your standard two unlikely people get lumped together while trying to get to a destination type story. I personally call this the planes, trains, and automobiles approach. They both have to put up with each other's antics until they get where they need to be. However, that's only plot A so far. Plot B actually starts at the beginning of the first episode. In a zoo located in Glurfsburg, the town most of this takes place in, a mysterious stranger sneaks inside to break out an animal known as a chikoraph. It's a chicken and a giraffe. Alright, when Sam and Guy met at the diner, they were both carrying identical briefcases. This of course leads to a mix-up which causes them to leave with the wrong briefcases. Inside Guy's case was a clunky invention of his, while Sam's case contained the chikoraph, concluding that Sam was the mystery man who broke the chikoraph out of the zoo. Also, the chikoraph is voiced by D. Bradley Baker. Guy ends up opening the briefcase at the hotel and all hell breaks loose. And that pretty much concludes the first episode of the series. There's also a bunch of side characters introduced in this episode that do play larger roles as the story progresses. Our first new characters are a woman named Michelle, voiced by Diane Keaton, and her daughter E.B., voiced by Lana Glazer. I hope I pronounced that right. Michelle is a helicopter parent over E.B. and a literal bean counter. Like, literally. She actually witnessed Guy completely mess up his final invention showcase too. I immediately knew Michelle was going to be some type of love interest because why else would she be a part of the plot? Next we have the bad guys, a pair of detectives who try to figure out who stole the chikoraph. The pair is made up of Glunts, voiced by Jillian Bell, who is basically a cracked out Tumblr girl, which is something I didn't expect to say. Her partner is McWinkle, voiced by Jeffrey Wright. He's more serious about his job and is about to retire. Throughout the season, they continuously try to capture the chikoraph but fail almost every time. Keyword almost. The main antagonist in this season is a man named Hervnik Z. Snurs, the owner of Snurs Co. His whole plan was to own the chikoraph in order to show up his cronies. He's also voiced by Eddie Izzard, which, after seeing Cars 2, all I can hear is Miles Axelrod. Since we already found out that Sam was the one who broke the chikoraph out of the zoo, the signs seem to point to Sam working for Snurs. Either way, this is all a very shady operation. Now, I only really went in depth for the first episode of the series, as it's where most of the characters and the overall plot are established. But for the rest of the season, I'll just explain the important parts of each episode, basically everything that pushes the plot forward. There's other characters that show up as the show goes on, but anyways, let's continue. After Guy realizes the issue with his briefcase, he immediately tries to find Sam in order to return it. Unfortunately for him, the bad guys, McWinkle and Glunts, were already in pursuit of Sam. They both thought they had Sam captured until somehow he carjacks them, whilst rescuing Guy in the process. While driving, Sam explains that he's trying to get to the same destination as Guy, that being Meatville. After Sam gets on his nerves, however, Guy decides to walk there instead. He later tries to hitch a ride with Michelle, who happens to pass by, but she immediately declines. This, along with borderline hallucinations from the heat, leaves Guy with no choice but to ride with Sam. Everything was going well until Guy woke up from his nap, just to find out that the car was headed straight for a lake, which ends the episode. Another sort of in-depth review there. I won't explain the entire show here in case you still want to watch it, but the first few episodes are pretty interesting. Now on to the animation, which is where I think the show shines the most. This show uses hand-drawn animation, which is something you almost never see nowadays. You can tell a lot of time and effort went into the designs and the style of the show. There's also a few references to other Dr. Seuss books, like the different colored fish from the book One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue Fish. That was not easy to say. And the main conflict of the first season involves elements from the Butter Battle book. I also think Netflix did a pretty good job with the selected cast for the characters. The voices fit perfectly. Now on to the biggest part of the series. Now the main thing that kept me, along with most people, interested was the many plot twists that occurred. Personally, they were a bit excessive, but I wasn't too bothered by them. Each one pushes the plot forward, so they're not entirely useless. My favorite plot twist has to be when the bad guys reveal their actual motives for finding the Chikoraph. It turns out the name Bad Guys was actually an acronym. It stands for Bureau of Animal Defense, Glurfsburg Upper Yipville Section. In short, they just wanted to protect the Chikoraph. Another twist, of course, was Sam revealing that he had been making up all of the stories about his mom the whole time. Turns out Sam didn't even know his mom that much because she wasn't ready to settle down yet. The only thing he knew about her was that she made his favorite dish, which was green eggs and ham. That explains why he's always eating them. It was sad to hear that, and of course people wanted to know why Sam's mom gave him up, but we'll talk about that later. While that was going on, we also learn a lot about Guy and his own issues. He feels inferior to his family, as most of them are way more successful than him at pretty much anything. I relate to that one. Another issue of his was, of course, honesty. Early on in the season, we could see a possible relationship growing between Guy and Michelle. However, due to circumstances, granted somewhere out of his control, he kept fumbling his opportunities to impress Michelle. But things eventually get better between those two. Until they don't again. And then they did again. Then they don't again. You get the point. I don't want to spoil too much of the show, so I'll wrap up the first season here. Most of the information about the show is here anyways, in my opinion, and I would say that this is a very solid first season. A great start to the show so far. Let's see where it goes next. On April 8th, 2022, Netflix officially released the second season of Green Eggs and Ham. Now, I watched the first season of the show way more times than I can remember, but I didn't watch the second season as much. Season 2 has a new intro and theme song, which I wasn't really a fan of. I don't hate the song, but Backflip was way more fun to listen to. I understand it's because the season takes on a much more serious plot than before. At the end of the final episode of Season 1, Sam and Guy decided to search for Sam's mother. Most people were aware this was going to be the main plot for Season 2, and I was curious to see how the plot would be carried out. Season 2 begins by showing the main characters in their current lives. Some time has passed since the previous season and things have changed. For starters, Guy and Michelle have since gotten married, which is nice, and was honestly to be expected. And Guy has opened his own invention shop. Things were going great, then his shop exploded. Realizing that there's not much he can do about it, Guy, along with EB, decided to tag along with Sam on his journey. But the main question is, will Sam find his mom? If I had a nickel for every time I discussed a cartoon where the protagonist had to find their mom, I'd have 2 nickels. Which isn't much, but it's strange that it happened twice. Anyways, through a bunch of leads, Sam and Guy eventually stumble upon 2 spies during a debacle over, you guessed it, a briefcase. One of the spies is revealed to be Sam's mother, Pam I Am. I'm sure most people didn't mind this, but for me, I kinda just zoned out when this happened. Going the secret spy route didn't interest me. I had to sit through Cars 2 and Spy Kids, which is probably why. I kinda predicted where the plot was going. Obviously, Sam was gonna tag along with his mom as a sidekick. Of course, that's only plot A, however. I was more interested in plot B. In plot B, we find out that there's a war going on between the lands of Yukia and Zukia. All of this started because they spread butter on toast differently. Remember that, I guess. This plot gives us a look at Guy and his role as EB's stepfather. Michelle did not go with them, however, and decided to stay home. Despite hating Zukia at first, Guy finds out that there's another way he can explore his career as an inventor by attending the Zukia Institute of Technology. Throughout this season, he splits his time between that place and being at the house where he and EB were temporarily staying at. There is also plot C, in a way, where we find out that Michelle is actually pregnant, and expecting a child soon. To be fair, this was shown in the trailer for Season 2, so it wasn't that much of a surprise. Some new characters are introduced in the season, along with returning characters, namely Glunts from the Bad Guys. She was actually one of the funniest characters in this season. But of course, the main plot was about Sam and his mother trying to repair their relationship, while chasing their enemy, Philip Trousers. Don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with this plot, like, at all. There are some nice moments here and there, and I can understand why people would like it, but it wasn't particularly memorable to me, at least not as much as the first season. If you're into the spy genre, then you might like this season. But that's about all I'll say about this season, and the show as a whole. So, what do I personally think of this show? I think it's a great series for anyone to watch. It's a show that stays true to the original source material whilst adding its own elements without causing any problems. I enjoyed seeing how the main characters would get out of trouble, and it kept me invested most of the time. For my rating, I'd give this show an 8.5 out of 10. Again, this is probably because I wasn't too invested in Season 2, but I think that's a fair rating. Let me know what you thought of the show in the comments below. And that about wraps up today's video. If you enjoyed this video, thanks for watching. There's this button here that says subscribe on it. I often hear good things about that button. You might want to give it a click, so you can get more content like this. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.